In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Gynosphinx is a lawful neutral monstrosity with armor class 17 and 136 hit points. It has a ground speed of 40 and a flying speed of 60, and is depicted as a female lion with eagle's wings. It has better stats than the Gynosphinx, and has a plus 12 to Arcana and History, as well as a plus 8 to both Perception and Religion, making them more knowledgeable about most things magical and historical. They are resistant to non-magical attacks, and are immune to psychic damage and the charmed and frightened conditions. They cannot be affected by anything that reads their emotions or thoughts, and are themselves spellcasters that focus on illusion and information-seeking spells. They can make a multi-attack with their claws and have legendary actions that are the same as their male counterpart. Like the Gynosphinx, I do not believe that the Gynosphinx is meant to be fought. All of its abilities and powers are meant to provide arcane information and resources to players. I would use the Gynosphinx much like the one from the Riddle of the Sphinx. The creature poses riddles to parties in order for them to advance their quests, or perhaps it's a font of knowledge that they can learn from in order to learn things about the arcane. In the event of combat, the Gynosphinx does not have as many options as the Gynosphinx, but it does have many spells to get itself out of combat entirely. As with the other type of Sphinx, the lair of a Gynosphinx is incredibly dangerous for players, and the Gynosphinx more than any other type should never engage in combat outside of its lair. If my players attempt to slay a Gynosphinx, I would use spells to trick them into leaving. Should they enter the lair anyway, I would immediately plane shift them all to another plane, possibly one of incredible danger if their incursion was particularly violent. If not, I would drop them in one of those medium danger or neutral planes and tell them that this is their punishment, and then use the bonus action to get the Sphinx out of there. In Greek mythology, the Sphinx was a woman-headed lion with eagle's wings and sometimes with a tail resembling a snake. They were incredibly popular in Grecian art and can trace their Grecian origin back to the Sphinx of Thebes depicted in the drama of Oedipus, where she demands outsiders answer her riddles in order to survive in the city. Any who answered wrong would be eaten alive. The malicious creature's riddle in most tellings is as follows. Which is the creature that has one voice, but has 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet in the afternoon, and 3 feet at night? To which Oedipus answered correctly with, the man, who crawls as a baby, walks as an adult, and uses a cane when he's old. An alternative riddle appears in some of the retellings as, there are 2 sisters, one who gives birth to the other, who in turn gives birth to the first. Who are they? To which Oedipus answers, day and night. In many of the tales, the Sphinx was bound to slay itself by impaling itself onto nearby rocks if someone answered its riddles correctly, which it does in the traditional Grecian myth. Most people ascribe the Sphinx to Egypt, but Egyptian sphinxes are specifically male and usually benign guardians of temples, whereas the Grecian myth depicts the same creature as malicious riddlers that kill people for fun. In contemporary media, we tend to see a blending of both the Egyptian and Grecian myths, most of them using the female imagery and malintent of Greece, and the guardian nature and strength of the Egyptian version. This could be due in part, strangely enough, to the French. The Sphinx myth experienced a sort of revival in France in the 15th century, with many French artists blending Greek and Egyptian imagery together with French art styles to make statues and paintings that were wholly new. These images then made their way around Europe and further, and a multitude of cultures made changes to the Egyptian and Grecian designs, leading to alternative names, creatures, and myths of their own. When comparing the monster to the Greek myth, we find that the imagery is the same, with the exception of the human face depicted in myth. Like most of the monsters in D&D that are based on Greek myth, the main difference here is that they are a race of creatures in D&D, and usually a singular being in the myth. It is interesting to note, however, that the different types of sphinxes in D&D are based strongly on the 2 different origins of the mythological creatures, separating them both by gender, intent, and their abilities. If you enjoyed that video, consider giving it a like and giving me a follow. And for more of my videos, you can find me on Twitch @Moglaroo, YouTube @MoglarooStreams, and TikTok @MoglarooStreams as well.